He left everything to his mistress. The house, the savings, the land we cleared by hand in Arkansas in the summer of 1983. The paper lay open on the kitchen table, next to a chipped ceramic mug with tea gone cold. My signature sat there neat, obedient just below the line that gave him full control. My jaw locked. My knees wouldn't move. I stared at that line like it had cut through me. A woman can live in a house for 40 years and still vanish from its story in a single stroke. Do you know exactly what you've signed and who it truly protects? Her name was Linda Mae Townsend. She was 68 years old and had lived in the same white clapboard house in Montgomery County, Arkansas, for most of her married life. It sat just off a gravel road lined with hickory trees, the kind of place where you could hear your neighbor's screen door shut a half-mile away. Her husband, Walter Townsend, had died 12 days before the story begins. He was 74, a retired CPA with a slow drawl and a sharp mind. Walter handled everything financial in their household. Linda had never once filed a tax return or logged into their bank account. That was his thing. And for decades, she'd seen no reason to question it. Linda had been a school librarian for over 30 years. She collected bird figurines. She liked silence and lemon tea. Her only daughter lived in Oregon and called twice a month. Life wasn't rich, but it was settled until it wasn't. After Walter's funeral, modest, Baptist. Over in 45 minutes, Linda expected a quiet time of grieving. She wore her wedding band to sleep. She watered the tomato patch he planted. She thought about what to do with his old fishing vest. The world around her moved softly until the mail came. The envelope was thick, her name printed in clean serif font. The return address read Marcus and Feldman, estate law. She thought it was another condolence letter. Inside, she found the will. She didn't understand at first. Melanie Brooks. That was the beneficiary. Who was that? She read it again. Slower this time. Melanie Brooks. Not Linda. Not her daughter. Melanie was listed for everything: the house, the joint savings, the truck, the lake cabin, everything. She called the law office. The woman on the other end, polite but tired sounding, told her the will had been notarized 8 months before Walter passed. There was also a durable power of attorney document signed by Linda herself that had allowed Walter to transfer assets into his name alone. I don't remember signing anything like that. Linda said, "It's here in your handwriting. Mrs. Townsend." The woman offered to send a copy. It arrived the next day. Linda sat in the kitchen and opened the envelope. The power of attorney bore her signature. The date matched a Tuesday. She vaguely recalled Walter had said it was something for his new retirement account. "Just sign here. Honey, saves me a trip back next week." She'd signed without reading. She always had. Melanie Brooks, she later found out, was Walter's client, a woman 20 years his junior. They'd met at a financial planning seminar. Melanie was unmarried, unemployed, and had recently moved into a townhome outside Little Rock. Paid in full by a wire transfer made 2 months before Walter died. Linda sat still for hours after learning that. The first thing she noticed was how quiet the refrigerator sounded, like it wasn't there anymore. She tried to stand. Her hands reached for the counter, but they shook. Her breath came shallow, not panicked, just broken. Later that evening, she found herself in the hallway. The floorboards creaked under her slippers. She touched the coat rack, where his flannel jacket still hung. Her fingers closed around the sleeve. She didn't cry. Not yet. She held the jacket against her chest and let her knees rest against the wall. The house, which had felt like hers for 4 decades, now echoed like a stranger's. The next morning, a man named Dwight came by. He was from Melanie's attorney's office. Polite, firm. He said Linda had 30 days to vacate the property. "There's nothing we can do. Ma'am, everything was transferred legally before Mr. Guy Townsend passed. We have copies of the documents if you'd like to review." Linda asked if she could at least keep the bird figurines. He said she could keep personal effects that held no resale value. She didn't respond. She walked back inside and sat on the stairs. That night, She reheated soup but forgot to turn the burner off. She found it still glowing red an hour later. The kettle had melted slightly on one side. She didn't feel angry. Not yet. It was something quieter, a sinking not in water, but in herself, like falling backward into a room where no one remembered her name. She slept with the hallway light on for the first time in decades. The following day, she took out the folder of documents and laid them across the dining room table. Each signature was hers, each form notarized, each page final. That's when the reaction finally came, not with screaming, but with a long stare, her eyes fixed on the copy of the deed, now titled solely to Walter before his transfer to Melanie. She leaned her elbows on the table and pressed her palms to her cheeks. A whisper left her lips. Not to Walter, not to Melanie, but to the walls around her. Maybe I disappeared the day I stopped asking questions. Or maybe I never asked the first one. The ceiling fan kept turning overhead. The tea on the counter was cold again. Nothing had moved, but everything had changed. He left everything to his mistress. And Linda, who had built that life brick by brick, couldn't even keep the kitchen she once painted yellow. There is a kind of silence that lasts decades, a silence made not of fear, but of love, habit, and trust. That silence was Linda's mistake. She believed that being a good wife meant not asking too many questions. Walter had always handled the money. He was a numbers man. She didn't think of that as surrender. It felt like partnership. But what Linda didn't see was how slowly that trust had removed her from her own life. This is what financial abuse in marriage looks like. It doesn't start with lies. It starts with comfort. Sign this. It'll make things easier. Let me handle the bank. You've got enough on your plate. A paper here, a password there. Over time, the power to say yes becomes the inability to say no. By the time Linda understood what she had signed, it was no longer her house, no longer her account, no longer her voice. Retirement betrayal isn't just about money. It's about the plans you built together, the promises you held on to after a lifetime of working, loving, building. She expected to grow old in peace. Instead, she learned that the person she trusted most had written her out of the ending. This betrayal is part of a much larger issue, elder financial exploitation, one of the fastest growing forms of abuse in the United States. It often targets older women, especially widows or wives who never managed household finances. Many women over the age of 65 find themselves suddenly alone, legally unprepared, and without support. And still, society rarely talks about it, because what Linda signed wasn't just a document, it was a permission slip for someone else to define what she was worth. But there is something else we must say, something harder. Walter did this, but Linda also allowed it to happen by staying silent, by not reading what she signed, by not asking questions when the envelope from the law office arrived. This is not about blame, it is about responsibility, because now, Linda must act, even after Walter's death. There are legal steps she can take. If she moves quickly and with help, she can hire a probate attorney to review the power of attorney and will. She can file a petition in probate court to challenge any signs of undue influence from the mistress. She can ask the court to freeze remaining assets and assert her rights under Arkansas community property law. If Walter misrepresented what she was signing, she may even seek to have those transactions reversed. But time is not her friend. If she does nothing, she will lose not just the house, but any chance at reclaiming her place in the story. And that's the quiet danger of this kind of abuse. It leaves no wounds, only paperwork, until you are no longer a wife, or a widow, or a partner. You're just a name that no longer appears on the deed. Linda didn't pack her things the next morning. She didn't shout. She didn't slam a single door. She opened a drawer. Inside was a folder of old utility bills, marriage certificates, bank statements, things she had never really looked at. She placed them on the table beside the power of attorney form she had once signed without question. Then she made 3 phone calls. The first was to a legal aid clinic in Little Rock. The second was to the Area Agency on Aging. The third, the hardest, was to her daughter in Oregon. Linda had never thought of herself as a woman who needed help. She had paid her dues, raised a family, worked an honest job. But now she saw that this wasn't about shame. It was about clarity and the right to understand the life she had built. With the help of a volunteer attorney, Linda filed a petition to challenge the validity of the asset transfers, citing lack of informed consent and possible undue influence. They could not reverse everything. The house was gone, the savings, mostly drained, but the lawyer found a technical flaw. One of the property deeds hadn't been properly filed with the county before Walter's death. That meant the transfer wasn't final, and the property reverted to the estate. Linda claimed a spousal share, based on community property laws in Arkansas. It wasn't everything, but it was something. She also filed a formal complaint under the state's elder protection statute, though criminal charges were unlikely. Her report flagged Melanie Brooks with the Financial Regulation Board. That record would follow her, if not stop her. The real victory, though, was not legal, it was personal. Linda joined a support group for women over 65 facing late-life divorce and financial abuse. At first, she just listened. Then, slowly, she began to share. Her voice didn't shake when she said it out loud. He left everything to his mistress, but he didn't take my name off the truth. That truth led her to take practical steps she never would have considered before. She drafted her own will with a lawyer she chose. She revoked all standing authorizations tied to her name. She opened a separate account for Social Security deposits. Each action was small, but each one gave her ground to stand on. She learned that elder financial exploitation doesn't always come from strangers. Sometimes it wears a wedding ring, and if it happened once, it could happen again to someone else, somewhere else. So she started writing letters, not to Walter, but to other women like her, because silence is what built the trap, and speaking up paper by paper, call by call is how she found her way out.